Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Ballad of the Bullet, Gangs, Drill Music, and the Power of Online Infamy by Forrest Stuart. Narrated by Timothy Andrés Pabon. Preface. On a warm September evening in 2012, 18-year-old Joseph Coleman rode a bike down a tree-lined street on Chicago's South Side. A nondescript Ford sedan slowly approached. Without warning, someone inside the car fired 7 shots at the young man, striking him as he tried to flee. Pronounced dead at a nearby hospital, Coleman had become the latest victim in the city's infamous gang violence. I first heard about Coleman's death 2 years later, during conversations with Chicago teenagers. At the time, I was directing an after-school program designed to help South Side youth cope with neighborhood violence. Coleman's murder was just one of the local shootings they shared with me. The more I dug into the details, however, the more I knew something was different. As I would learn, the attack on Coleman had escalated on social media, across platforms like YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Over several months, Coleman, an aspiring rapper known as Lil JoJo, had been embroiled in an online musical war of words with a rival gang. He sparked hostilities when he uploaded a homemade music video to YouTube. The grainy footage features the teen and a dozen shirtless friends holding a small arsenal of pistols and machine guns, taunting their rivals. Then Coleman uploaded a second video. This one showed him driving through rival gang territory, taunting his enemies through the open window of a passing car. As the death threats poured in, Coleman brazenly advertised his physical location on Twitter, daring his enemies to come find him and make good on their word. 4 hours later, he was dead. His rivals used social media to celebrate the killing, kicking off more rounds of retaliatory shootings that continue to this day. Even more surprising than the role of social media in Coleman's death were local teens' responses to it. They were simultaneously terrified and enthralled. In one moment, they worried about getting trapped in the crossfire of this new brand of gang warfare. But in the next moment, they devoured any and every piece of related digital content. Teens huddled around their phones, debating which gang was really the most violent. They kept a running score, tallying who had buried the most bodies. I noticed a morbid similarity between their giddy discussions of gang violence and their debates about favorite professional basketball players. But instead of comparing stat lines and three-point percentages, they discussed gunplay and homicide. These teens are far from unique in their obsession. As the details surrounding Coleman's murder went public, audiences across Chicago, the United States, and the globe flocked to social media to witness the still-raging rivalry for themselves. The half-dozen videos bearing Coleman's name drew tens of millions of views, likes, and comments. Practically overnight, dozens of websites and blogs sprang up to chronicle online feuds and forecast the next street corner battle. Hoping to claim some of that attention for themselves, scores of Chicago youth, particularly gang-associated teens, began emulating Coleman's online content. Consider this. Of the estimated 45 gang factions in the 6 square miles surrounding Coleman's Englewood neighborhood, a staggering 31 of them, roughly 69%, had uploaded one of these inflammatory music videos to YouTube by 2016. This means that for every 2 blocks, there is at least one group of teens creating violent, gang-related content. The race to attract clicks didn't stay confined to Chicago for very long. Media outlets in New York, Los Angeles, London, Paris, and other global hubs report similar trends. Some of these cities have responded by launching social media policing units, arresting young people based sometimes solely on their social media activity. National intelligence agencies, including the FBI, are developing artificial intelligence, AI, and digital surveillance tools to aggressively investigate and incarcerate them. As I watched these audiences variously consume, celebrate, and decry this online content, I couldn't help but ask, how had this all begun? Who were these young men, and why were they so willing to risk death and arrest for something as fleeting as a YouTube video or Instagram photo. Why did their online behavior so captivate the public, and how was it affecting social life in their surrounding communities? In 2014, I set out to find answers. I started interviewing young people in my after-school program and in communities across the South Side. As enlightening as these initial conversations were about the dynamics of teenage consumption, it was a frustratingly partial picture. After hundreds of conversations, I still didn't know much at all about the whys and hows of production. I still hadn't spoken to a single one of the young men who were creating such startling content. This would all change one afternoon during a fortuitous interview with a young man named Ryan, who had been enrolled in my program. Ryan disclosed that his 19-year-old brother, known on the street as Zebo, was a member of a gang faction responsible for filming and uploading some of Chicago's most watched music videos. They called themselves CBE, short for Corner Boys Entertainment, or simply the Corner Boys. The 30 or so young men controlled a roughly 4-block territory located a couple of miles away in the Taylor Park neighborhood. Over the span of just 2 years, the Corner Boys had attracted millions of views and tens of thousands of social media followers from around the world. I was already familiar with CBE's online content. Their videos were a constant topic of conversation in my after-school program. I knew that if I truly wanted to get my head around this issue, I had to go to the source. I had to talk to the Corner Boys. I asked Ryan to broker a meeting. 3 months later, I sat in the living room of one of the Corner Boys' central figures, a dreadlocked, fast-talking 19-year-old named AJ. For nearly 4 hours, we discussed a range of topics, from AJ's initial decision to upload violent content to how it had transformed his daily life. He introduced me to other key members of CBE, encouraging them to talk about their own experiences with social media, gang life, and violence. I met Dominic, a stoic teen who likes to flash the latest streetwear trends on his Instagram account. I spoke with Adam, known in the neighborhood for his quick wit and controversial Twitter profile. I sat down with Xavier, the most well-known of the Corner Boys. The lanky 20-year-old was quick to show off his recent YouTube music video, which had surpassed 2 million views. After the introductions, AJ encouraged me to stick around for a few more hours to watch them record their newest music video. As they wrapped up for the evening, he invited me to come back the next day. And so began my relationship with the Corner Boys. Over the next 2 years, I spent virtually every day with these young men, shadowing them throughout their daily lives. Each morning, I made the half-hour drive from my home near downtown to Taylor Park. We'd spend hours watching music videos, discussing gang rivalries, shooting dice, and generally hanging out until late in the evening, sometimes past sunrise. The time I had devoted to the Corner Boys' younger siblings and family members in after-school programs opened the door to their world, but remaining there for as long as I did required real give and take. These young men were providing access information as a kind of favor to me, and they vaguely wanted something in return. Following that first day in AJ's apartment, several of them asked me to drive them to early morning court hearings. Others approached me for rides to work, to see family, and visit probation officers. Without cars and licenses, and fearing attacks on public transportation, they had few safe options for moving around the city. That was until I showed up. I soon became their go-to option, a role I was happy to play. They had invited me in and entrusted me with their stories. I wanted to give back however I could. I started responding to calls at all hours of the day and night, from various young men desperate to get across town. I drove them to see grandmothers, girlfriends, and sons. I accompanied them to funerals, baby showers, and birthday parties, and as their online popularity gained momentum, we packed into my car for road trips across the United States, to cities like Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Atlanta, where they met up with online collaborators, fans, and lovers. Back in Taylor Park, We'd spend hours in my parked car, listening to music and watching online videos as we escaped the sticky summer heat and chilling winter winds. Before I knew it, my passenger seat had become something of a confessional, a place where they shared hopes and fears and dreams that they otherwise hid from the public eye. I used an audio recorder and note-taking application on my phone to preserve their words. The more entwined I became in the corner boys' lives, the more deeply I came to care for them. The more I cared for them, the more tension I felt between my professional and personal responsibilities. As a researcher, I was trying to understand the corner boys, not change them. But as a violence prevention worker, and as somebody increasingly invested in their well-being, it felt irresponsible to sit idly by when they engaged in harmful and self-destructive acts. I eventually found a middle, if not entirely satisfactory, path forward. When I heard about or witnessed problematic behaviors, I refrained from judgment and paternalism. Instead, I listened closely, probing their underlying feelings and rationales, allowing them to be the authorities about their own lives. Sometimes I created distractions and alternatives. One summer, I made a standing offer to pick them up and get them out of the neighborhood whenever their rivals attempted a drive-by shooting. I provided lunch, dinner, and other diversions for as long as it took for the neighborhood to cool off, returning only after their talk of retaliation had died down. As I watched online audiences applaud the corner boys' violent personas and encourage even riskier behaviors, I committed to serve as a counterweight. I actively celebrated their non-criminal identities and accomplishments that they withheld from social media: a newborn son, a month of sobriety, a high grade on a school assignment. I also leveraged my social networks to find them jobs, re-enroll them in school, and help them recover from addictions, access health care, and fulfill family obligations. I even supported some of their efforts to abandon their violent online personas by uploading more nonviolent content. I tapped my own background in audio production and arts programming to support alternative modes of creative expression. Across all of these moments, I found the answers I was looking for, and far more that I hadn't anticipated. The second that follow recount what I learned. For generations, society has denied young black men a seat at the table, disregarding their voices while demonizing their mere existence. They've been labeled urban predators and menaces to society. But now, thanks to the proliferation of social media, these young people have found a new way to be seen and heard, if only by twisting these age-old stereotypes to suit their own needs. In Taylor Park and across the globe, gang-associated youth are exploiting digital platforms to commodify urban violence and cash in on the public's long-standing fascination with ghetto poverty. In the process, they're forging a new, if often dangerous, pathway toward upward mobility, self-worth, and social support. And as they jockey for online infamy, they're reshaping everyday life in their communities, forcing us to reconsider many of our taken-for-granted ideas about gangs, violence, and urban disadvantage. It's easy to jump to conclusions when we hear stories about teens like Joseph Coleman, or when we watch videos from groups like the Corner Boys. Unfortunately, most of those conclusions are wrong. Yes, these young men brazenly celebrate crime and violence, but they're doing it for reasons we don't often consider. Behind their online bravado is a desperate attempt to build a better future for themselves, to feel loved, to be seen as someone special. In that respect, they're flocking to social media for some of the same reasons as everyone else. They're just doing it under drastically different conditions, conditions that should provoke our consternation more than these young people do. Their online behaviors are inseparable from an offline world scarred by immense structural violence. Like all youth, they're just trying to live their lives within the possibilities and limits of the world we've created for them. Introduction. It was about 5 a.m. when I left my apartment in Chicago's South Loop neighborhood. I merged onto the Dan Ryan Expressway and pointed my car south. The summer sunrise loomed just below the horizon to the east, so the roads were still clear. The highway took me past familiar landmarks. The ominous Cook County Criminal Courthouse, the modern architecture of the Illinois Institute of Technology, the dark silhouette of the White Sox Stadium. After a short drive, I exited the highway and pulled onto the quiet streets of Taylor Park, one of the city's struggling black neighborhoods. A generation ago, this area would have been buzzing with activity, even at this hour. Residents clad in work attire would be making their way to the train platform and shopping district. They'd likely wrinkle their noses at the acrid clouds from awakening smokestacks. Today, these sights and smells are distant memories. Once the sun rises, the only thing that will fill the air are the white blooms of cottonwood seeds, unleashed by the overgrown trees that are reclaiming the neighborhood, one abandoned lot at a time. I turned onto one of Taylor Park's side streets, stopping in front of a collection of dull brick apartment buildings, home to dozens of the neighborhood's poorest residents. I spotted a familiar young man sitting alone on the curb, clad in his weathered black hoodie and faded jeans. I knew I'd find Junior here. After his mother kicked him out of her home, he had been sleeping in one of the apartment stairwells. If Junior noticed me, he didn't show it. As usual, his eyes were glued to the cracked screen of his iPhone. In these early morning hours, it cast a dull blue light on his dreadlocks, framing his sharp but boyish features. A couple of dozen facial hairs curled around his chin, a hopeful attempt at growing a beard. Junior was 18 years old, but looked much closer to 15. Born with a serious heart condition, he was small for his age, weighing 130 pounds at most, but it would be a mistake to underestimate him on account of his size. Until recently, Junior had been one of the most feared stick-up kids in the neighborhood. What he lacked in physical presence, he made up for in his record of robberies. His arms, though thin, were covered in scratchy tattoos. Some paid tribute to his gang faction, the Corner Boys. Others memorialized the friends he'd lost to gun violence and gang warfare. Like so many other young Southsiders, Junior had recently devoted himself to a new passion, recording homemade music videos and uploading them to social media platforms such as YouTube and Facebook. In these uploads, Junior and his fellow Corner Boys boast of violent crimes, taunt rivals, and brag about drug profits. It's been a lucrative formula. In the previous few months, Junior's online notoriety had skyrocketed. As his content traveled the globe, he began receiving messages from viewers and fans, hoping to follow his lead and build their own online fame. Some invited him to collaborate, even offering to pay him to make appearances in their music videos and Instagram photos. This, in fact, was why the two of us were up before sunrise today. A couple of weeks earlier, Junior had received a Facebook message from an adoring fan in Los Angeles who offered to fly Junior there to meet with him. He asked Junior to help him increase his own online following and launch his own online career. If all went according to plan, they'd record music videos together and plaster their photos all over social media. To seal the deal, the fan sent Junior an $800 down payment and bought him a round-trip flight to LAX. When Junior invited me to tag along, I immediately bought myself a ticket. I even volunteered to drive us to the airport. When we arrived at Midway, I even saw a Junior that few others ever see. He grinned with childlike wonder. As we checked in for our flight, passed through security, and boarded the plane, his stoic demeanor gave way to a wide-eyed awe. I couldn't help smiling, too. It was a day of firsts. His first time in an airport, his first time on a plane, one of his first times ever stepping foot outside Chicago. As I watched him take the seat, fumble with the seatbelt, and upload a final selfie photo to Instagram, I was struck by the weight of what I was witnessing. Here was one of the most disadvantaged youth, from one of the most distressed communities, enjoying a level of celebrity that few people, regardless of background, will ever experience. By most accounts, the future looks bleak for someone like Junior. Yet from the stairwells of a low-income apartment building, this homeless, unemployed, gang-associated young man had managed to build a global brand, bringing him new levels of income and admiration. Junior isn't alone. In places like Taylor Park, viable options in both the formal and informal economies are steadily drying up. But in the void, young residents like the Corner Boys have developed new, creative, online strategies for making ends meet. Specifically, they've learned to exploit the unique affordances provided by digital social media to capitalize on a burgeoning market for urban gang violence, or more accurately, a market for the representation of urban gang violence. They're doing so through the creation and dissemination of what has become known as drill music. Drill music, which in slang terms translates to shooting music, is an emerging genre of hyper-violent, hyper-local, DIY-style gangster rap that claims to document street life and violent criminality. Through music videos and other social media uploads, these drill rappers, often referred to simply as drillers, compete on a global stage to prove that they're more ruthless, more delinquent, and more authentic than their competitors. In a perverse system of benefits, the victors receive a range of spoils, including cash, housing, guns, sex, and for a select few, a ticket out of poverty. The rest, however, can end up behind bars, seriously injured, or dead. Known for little else but their stigma, these young men have found an innovative way to package and sell it, all in the hope of escaping their desperate conditions. Welcome to the online attention economy. Drill's sudden appearance and spread across the internet caught most of the world by surprise. But it's only surprising if we look at it in a vacuum. When we consider it in the context of broader social, economic, and technological shifts, the production and dissemination of hyper-violent content becomes remarkably legible, predictable even. It's what happens when the digital economy and urban poverty collide. Nowadays, it's something of a cliché to say that technology, particularly digital social media, is transforming society. In 2018, 2/3 of American adults had Facebook accounts, and nearly 95% of young people used YouTube. By the year 2027, an estimated 1 in 3 American adults will transition to online platforms to support themselves financially. What was once a technological fantasy has become a major source of entertainment, socialization, and employment. Unsurprisingly, social media platforms and related services now dominate the global economy. As recently as 2006, ExxonMobil and General Electric were the world's largest companies, sitting atop a list of traditional manufacturing, transportation, and financial firms. A decade later, tech companies had completely taken over this list. By 2017, Apple, Alphabet, Google's parent company, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook ranked in that order as the 5 largest companies in the world. In the wake of the Great Recession, many commentators still consider the tech industry as one of the lone bright spots in an otherwise disappointing and unstable economy. They applaud a range of online platforms for appearing to offer all people, whether rich, poor, black, or white, a new model for attaining financial and personal success within a precarious and competitive job market. More than anything else, social media are heralded for providing the public with the tools to become more entrepreneurial and self-made. This is perhaps most pronounced in the creative industries, where social media have massively democratized the means of cultural production. Once monopolized by traditional media corporations and their gatekeepers, the power to create, disseminate, and profit from original content has been transferred into the hands of everyday people. Today, freelance journalists use Twitter to disseminate op-eds and political commentary. Aspiring fashion designers show off their latest creations on Instagram. Independent musicians use YouTube to debut original songs and videos. The list of amateur cultural producers grows by the day. But with so many people engaging social media in this way, How does someone go about distinguishing their own self-brand from everyone else trying to do the same? How do they make their own content more visible and attractive than their competitors? Consider the difficulty of standing out on a platform like YouTube. In a single year, YouTube's 1.3 billion users, roughly one-third of the Earth's internet users, uploaded 210 billion hours of video to the platform. That's the equivalent of 400 hours of content uploaded every minute. Although digital content is virtually endless, the time and energy necessary to consume it is finite. This asymmetry has given rise to what is loosely referred to as the online attention economy, a competitive field where cultural producers vie for the eyes and ears of audiences. In today's social media age, attention has become a scarce, valuable, and quantifiable resource. Each social media platform offers its own metrics for keeping track of the winners and losers. Twitter and Instagram have followers. YouTube has views. Facebook has friends. The higher these numbers, the more attention someone commands. The more attention they command, the greater their potential returns. Open up a recent issue of Vanity Fair, People, or any other popular magazine, and you'll find detailed articles about the attention economy's latest champion. The updated version of the American bootstrap story goes like this. Some otherwise ordinary person followed their passion, displayed their talents on social media, and amassed enough of a following to catch the attention of investors, tastemakers, and other industry gatekeepers who paved the way to fame and fortune. The best-known examples have occurred in the world of music. Justin Bieber, the Chainsmokers, Carly Rae Jepsen, and Ed Sheeran. These are just a few of the chart-topping household names who built their careers on the backs of viral YouTube uploads. Like most companies operating in today's creative industries, record labels don't have the financial stability to take chances on unknown and untested artists anymore. With profit margins growing slimmer, they have to make much safer bets about what audiences want. By waiting to sign artists until they've built a sufficient online reputation, record execs capitalize on existing fan bases and brand recognition. As more industries use social media to crowdsource talent scouting, development, and marketing, aspiring creatives scramble to amass online popularity or micro-celebrity among a large following. The social media researcher Terry Senft originally coined the term to describe a new style of online performance in which people employ webcams, video, audio, blogs, and social media networking sites to amp up their popularity among readers, viewers, and those to whom they are linked online. This typically involves viewing friends or followers as a fan base, acknowledging popularity as a goal, managing the fan base using a variety of affinitive techniques, and constructing an image of self that can be easily consumed by others. Despite popular tales of overnight stardom, cultivating micro-celebrity is no simple task. It demands a significant investment of time, energy, and other resources. Although the means of cultural production are now more open than ever, some people are better equipped to exploit them than others. As the communications scholar Brooke Aaron Duffy importantly reminds us, those who have been especially successful at channeling their passion projects into lucrative social media careers come from a position of relative privilege, by virtue of economic and/or social capital. The most successful micro-celebrities benefit from financial investments from family and friends, social ties to industry power brokers, access to the latest technology, and the economic stability to forgo paid employment to concentrate on content creation. The persistent unevenness in this supposedly open and democratized space raises important questions. How do people with less economic and social capital build micro-celebrity? How do they create and cultivate a self-brand that is compelling enough to stand out in the attention economy? Perhaps the most influential study of cultural production by disadvantaged groups was written long before the arrival of social media. In The Rules of Art, The sociologist Pierre Bourdieu.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?